Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. As I'm sure you're all aware, there have been tons of classified leaks, so leaks regarding vehicles in real life, their flight manual specifications, things of that nature, leaks going on to Warthunder forums for quite some time, and over the last few weeks it has heated up yet again, with the release of classified or at very least restricted information regarding the F-117 Nighthawk most recently, which is arguably the most serious event thus far, and also a flight manual which again was restricted for the Eurofighter Typhoon. And as such, you have to start to wonder here, something that I really don't see people focusing on, maybe mentioning in passing, but not focusing on entirely, and that's kind of the point of this video. My question is, how is this going to impact Warthunder? How is this impacting Gaijin? And is it actually kind of a good thing? Now, this is going to be kind of an opinion video, but I'll try to pull up some stats if I can, like Steam charts for example, but again, there's only so much that we have access to as consumers, as players of the game. We do not see the minute-by-minute numbers like people at Gaijin see for Warthunder, so what I have will have to be based on observation, and again, as limited of stats as I actually have access to. Now that being said, some background. Again, there have been plenty of classified leaks over the last, I'd say about year and a half, 2 years, and these have more or less kind of pertained to the vehicles in-game, though we have also seen vehicles that are not in-game, like the F-117, the Eurofighter Typhoon, F-15, and we've also seen ammunition such as, if I'm not mistaken, the DCT ammunition, if I'm not mistaken, is how it is labeled, the Chinese APF-SDS. Basically, there have been leaks on those things, as well as things like the Challenger 2, the Leclerc, things of that nature. In total, Gaijin estimates, as well as other sources, and myself included, that this has happened about a dozen times. And again, these typically come in the form of either flight manuals or specifications like spec sheets on the actual weapon itself, but there have also been things like crew members that have leaked documents and specifications that it might be in their crew guide or whatever the case may be. That's kind of what happened with the Challenger 2 crewman that actually leaked it. He was the first person, as far as I know, that leaked classified or restricted information. Long story short, this has happened quite a few times in a number of different ways, but pretty much it's always gone to the forums as a way of either settling a dispute or trying to get Gaijin to change specifications in-game, which, by the way, guys, I've already mentioned it many times. Many people have mentioned it. Gaijin themselves have mentioned it. They will never change anything based on classified or restricted information, ever. So anytime that you leak it, you are just putting yourself in a grave, so to speak. I mean, not literally, some people maybe, like maybe the person who leaked the Chinese APF-SDS specs, but who knows? Anyways, does this hurt or help Gaijin? Well, I'll just say it here. I think this helps Gaijin, at least a little bit. More specifically, at very least, I don't think it hurts Gaijin. So if you look at it kind of from a marketing or from a relations, like a PR sort of viewpoint, you can kind of look at all of these stories as free publicity in a way, right? Because they always say, oh, well, there's been yet another leak of classified information on Warthunder forums, or, oh, Warthunder players are the best intelligence service in the world, or whatever the case may be. It's become kind of a meme at this point, right? And you have to wonder to yourself, how many people are looking at these and saying, wow, their player base cares that much, or wow, they get their information this specific, and then they join or play Warthunder, whatever the case may be. You have to kind of wonder how many people are doing that. And by the way, if you've done this, in the comments below, let me know in the comments below. If you've seen one of these news stories and you said, wow, I gotta pick up that game, because I'm genuinely interested. Are there people who've done that? If so, are you watching this video? I want to know, and I'm sure a lot of other people want to know. But conversely, does this sort of thing make you sick and tired of playing Warthunder, or just put like a bad taste in your stomach? Whatever the case may be. Have you stopped playing Warthunder because of all these leaks? Are you considering stopping playing Warthunder because of all these leaks? Again, let us know in the comments below. But that being said, aside from these stories, right, like a lot of people are looking at them as kind of haha funny, you know, this is funny, whatever. And the other stories that came out about Warthunder were a few months ago with the relatively large protests against the game. I mean, there were literally news stories about it, I think on like PCGamer.com, things like that, where the news of the quote-unquote uprising, and I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but the uprising uprising, so to speak, was being spread across the internet, but otherwise, Warthunder is pretty much always known in the news, and it's getting into pretty big sources, pretty big outlets, so to speak, mainstream media even, where we are getting known for, hey, this is that game where all the crazy intelligence leakers go to. And again, for the most part, I mean, it's not like they're leaving blueprints for how to build an atomic bomb or, oh, this is what the US military is going to have ready by 2027. You know, it's not something like that. These are already in production vehicles for the most part. Many of them are out of service vehicles. I mean, the F-117, for the most part, is out of service, although they have been flown recently in both aggressor roles and also because of their stealth capabilities, because they're one of the very few aircraft in the world with their stealth capabilities, that they have been flying new and unused technologies, basically testing them, so they are still very important. But again, you also do have some frontline fighters still that are being leaked, like the F-16 was one of them, the F-15, which isn't in-game, the Eurofighter Typhoon, which isn't in-game, and plenty of tanks and things of that nature. So it's gotten to be kind of a big problem. And yes, I'll just mention this one last time, don't do it, guys, because Gaijin will never use that information. They just won't. It's not how they operate, and it's really not how they can operate. They'd probably be arrested if they started saying, hey, send us all this classified information. It would not work. And also, you might have people showing up in black vans and with black helicopters overhead going to your house asking where you got that information, but regardless. But going back to the original point of this video, right, the leaks. I don't think that they're a bad thing for Gaijin. Of course, I think that they are a bad thing. Don't do it. It's stupid, incredibly stupid, whatever. But I don't think that's hurting Gaijin, at least for now. So currently, it's more or less like free advertising, because all of these stories, they're like, oh, look, War Thunder, it's an extremely hyper-realistic game. I mean, people who don't play War Thunder are making these articles, and they're like, oh man, those crazy people at War Thunder, they leaked it again. Let's go make an article. And they get clicks off of it, and then what happens is people who have no idea what War Thunder is, they're like, oh, well, may as well go play it. This looks like a cool game, you know, and it's available on Steam. You have all these things. And the thing is if people are clicking on these stories with the way that cookies work, is that they might get more War Thunder related content in their YouTube, maybe on advertisements, whatever the case may be. It might just start showing up more and more often because they just clicked on a story where they saw about some idiot who leaked information that was restricted or classified, and thus they are going to be pelted with it more often, and then they'll be more likely to play the game. So I looked at some of the Steam charts, and it's a little bit difficult to tell, which more or less I think means that, at least from what I can see, there aren't many changes in player numbers, but if nothing else, I could tell you that certainly player numbers have not decreased because of the most recent leaks. They've stayed pretty steady. However, again, that's not to say that maybe over time you might start seeing, and this is where it gets a little bit more difficult for us to see, especially for the fact that I don't have access to all of the numbers. So Steam numbers, that's just a part of the overall numbers. So Gaijin might see an actual trend here where it's a little bit positive. There could be a 0.1% increase per month in player numbers every single time that a leak occurs, which isn't all too much, but built up over time, that could be a few hundred or a few thousand players, which does make a difference. And again, personally, I don't think that this is killing player count. I don't think that people are looking at this and being like, oh, War Thunder, man, this game is for crazy conspiracy theorists who leak information. I don't think it's like that at all. I think that people are getting on board with this meme, or they're finding it funny, or they're like, again, this is a really hyper-realistic game with players who care about it and really want it to be accurate. Let's jump into it. My only one fear, however, is that this could become something where actual governments step in, right? Like right now, we are on the level of the civilian, right? We're not on the level of like governments taking action. But there was a rumor going around a few months ago that Raytheon, for example, was asking if people played War Thunder in their interviews. And of course, that turned out to be false. However, I think it brings up an interesting point, because what happens when it does become a serious enough issue? What happens if it becomes a serious enough issue, rather, or what happens if something happens, a leak happens on such a scale, right? Maybe it's like number of leaks, or maybe the quality of information. Maybe it's something like on an F-22, something super secretive, and it gets posted to a Warthunder forum, and it keeps happening like that. What happens then? Will governmental authorities step in and shut the game down? Which at that point, obviously, it becomes the ultimate negative for Gaijin, right? Like right now, I think that this is a fairly minor, but still somewhat positive thing for Gaijin, because again, at the floor, it's just free PR, and they say there's no such thing as bad PR, and that's kind of like how I'm looking at this. But if it got to the point where they keep poking the bear, so to speak, quite literally, like if they if people leak secret Russian information onto these forums, I could see that happening. But aside from that, just general government things, or something happens where you start poking the really big group of people, right? Like the government, whatever the case may be, from XYZ country, then you might start seeing this getting banned. Now, I'm not really sure if that's ever going to happen, but you have to wonder if it will, and I think that's one of the reasons why Gaijin is so staunch on their anti-classified, anti-restricted information rule, so to speak, because if they piss off the wrong people, even though it's not their fault, right? Like they've said many times, mostly via memes and short videos, but they've said many times, this is against our rules, you can't post like this, you can't give us classified info, we'll not use it, we'll ban you, whatever the case may be. If it keeps happening, even though Gaijin very clearly has stated many times that they don't support it, and it doesn't help them that they are an Eastern European company, originally, if I'm not mistaken, headquartered in Moscow, now in Hungary, I believe Budapest. What happens when the US just gets tired of it and it becomes something like TikTok, for example, of course on a different scale, but because there is such a smaller scale to War Thunder than TikTok, it'd probably be easier to get banned or something where it just gets kind of a chokehold put on it, where now all of a sudden it's tougher to play, or this, that, or the other thing. Whatever the case may be, maybe they have to start using fake vehicles. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but even if the US, obviously, I don't think the US would ever ban it. But let's say like Malaysia bans it, Singapore, Russia, for example, China bans it, then we might start seeing some major problems. And of course, back when it comes to the protest a few months ago, I was, for the most part, in support of it. I mean, some of the stupid groups and all that, it got a little bit silly, but for the most part, those protests, they brought out good changes in War Thunder. But of course, even though I supported for the most part those protests, I do still support War Thunder 100%. I mean, it's probably my favorite game of all time, and I want it to do well. And once you start seeing these small countries, maybe a medium or a large size country, saying, whoa, they're leaking our information, or this is a place where people go to leak information, what happens then? And that's kind of my biggest fear about all of these leaks. It's not that it's going to turn people away from Gaijin, from War Thunder, because I feel like in a very small sense, it's bringing people towards it, just in the fact that it's kind of like free advertising for War Thunder. But what happens when you poke the bear just a little bit too much, and all of a sudden, countries start banning War Thunder? That's my fear. So for now, I feel like these leaks, in a funny way, are almost kind of helping War Thunder grow and become more of a household name, so to speak. I mean, it's one of those games that like 15 people in every city play it. It's not like huge groups of people like Modern Warfare 2 or whatever, but it's still something where I feel like more and more people are playing it. However, I fear critical mass will come sooner than later once these leaks start getting either severe enough, like in terms of quantity or quality, and then governments, hopefully this doesn't get to this point, but governments might take action in the future. But that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Again, I'm interested to read your opinions. Have you joined War Thunder because you saw a story about it in the leaks and all that, or have you stopped playing War Thunder because of that? But either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.